also one of the things that happened at the time of Badr al-Nadir was the complete abolition of khamr. The area of the complete abolition of khamr being 100% haram in Islam happened also at the time of Badr al-Nadir. And then the other very famous ayah in the Quran that we all should know about forced conversions. Again, this is like when people, Islamophobes, ignorant people about Islam say about, oh, Islam just forces people to convert. What ayah was revealed at that time, actually of Badr al-Nadir, that tells Muslims not to force a conversion on anyone? La ikrah fi din, mashallah. All of this occurred at the time of Badr al-Nadir, right? So this is very important. Okay, what was the happy event that occurred around that time for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Very happy event. The Hassan, mashallah. Yeah, so Hassan was born. And Hassan was born, radiallahu anhu. He was the first grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam changed his name from what to Hassan? Harb. Yeah, so Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu called him Harb. Harb in Arabic means war. And this was a common name for the Arabs. Very common. Harb is like someone who's tough, who can fight, who's like courageous and strong and brave. And the Prophet ﷺ said, you will not call him Harb, you will call him Hassan. And later on, when the brother was born, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he just called him Al-Husayn. He's called him Little Hassan, right? So they're only a year apart. Hassan and Hussein only roughly a year apart from each other. And we know that many of the fiqh ahkam of aqiqah came from the birth of Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what we know about the sunnah that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to do with respect to the birth of new children happened at the time of Hassan. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself is the one that sacrificed the aqiqah. He distributed the aqiqah. He paid, the sadaqah for his grandchild. And just to continue with this path of Hassan, we said that some people, narrators of Sirah, refer to him as the which number of Khulafa? Fifth, mashallah. So many of the authors, of the authentic authors of Sirah of the Prophet ﷺ refers to Al-Hasan as the fifth Khalifa of Islam because he came after his father. And what did he do to stop the war between the Muslims? This is related to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he says, "Inna ibni hada," this. Yes, the son of mine is a Sayyid. A Sayyid is a leader. A Sayyid is a wise person. A Sayyid is someone that can lead, that can manage. And he says the Sayyid, the son of mine, meaning his grandson, is going to be a Sayyid, and the Sayyid will cause peace between two large warring groups of Muslims. And we said that this happened exactly 30 years after this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where what did Hassan do? That's right. He abdicated his right to Khilafah to Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, who was the Khalifa of the Muslims in Ash-Sham, in Syria. And that way he stopped the war. He stopped the civil war between both sides of Islam. And we also mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that there will be I will be with you for a certain period of time, and then after that there will be a righteous kingdom for as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants until He takes it away, and then will be an unrighteous kingdom for as long as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills and then takes it away, and then it will go back to Khilafah ala minhaj al-nubuwwah, a Khilafah with the same methodology of the Nubuwwah after this. So this is some of what we had covered, and then also spoke about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Al-Hasan wal-Husayn sayyida shababi ahli al-Jannah wa abuhuma khayrun minhuma. Hassan and Hussein are both the leaders of the shabab of the youth of Jannah, and their father is better than the both of them. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next important event of the seerah, and this is called the expedition of Al-Muraysiyah. Expedition of Al-Muraysiyah. Does anyone know where Al-Muraysiyah is? Has anyone ever heard of this place? So this place is south of Medina. It's south of Medina. It's closer to Medina than it is to Mecca. It's southeast actually of Medina. And Muraysiyah had a tribe that was in general alliance with the Meccans at the time of Jahiliyyah. Muraysiyah had a tribe that was a general alliance with the people of Mecca. And the tribe that lived there is called the tribe of Bani al-Mustaliq. Bani al-Mustaliq. And they had a lot. The original alliance, by the way, it's such an old alliance with the Jahiliyyah people of Mecca that it started at the time of Abdul Muttalib. Who was Abdul Muttalib? Abdul Muttalib. Who was he? The grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ. So this alliance goes way back to the time of the grandfather of the Prophet ﷺ that was maintained after these generations, and it was considered one of the most solid alliances that the people of Quraysh had. And when the Quraysh actually attacked the Muslims, when they went to attack the Muslims, when did they go to attack the Muslims? A few years back. What was that called? Uhud, right? Uhud. When they went to attack, the Quraysh basically called in the alliance, and this Bani al-Mustaliq tribe sided with the Quraysh against the Muslims. Now, the location of the city, so if you can imagine of this tribe between Mecca and between Medina, it represents a danger to the Muslims in Medina. A, because of its proximity, and B, because it's also one of the defensive points that the Quraysh used to divert their caravans. So remember, the whole caravan situation is still in play. The Quraysh are they're still disturbed by the fact that their caravans are being attacked, and they still can't quite control it. But Muraysiyah is one of the safe points. So rather than going from Mecca, rather than going north, see, this is where map is good. Northwest, they can go northeast roughly, but they still have a safe spot on the journey, and they go around Medina. It's a little bit of a more inconvenient way, but it's still a safe spot for the caravans of the Quraysh as they're trading. And the Prophet ﷺ essentially gets information that Al-Muraysiyah, that Bani al-Mustaliq wanted to surprise attack the Muslims, especially after what the Quraysh said, which is that we defeated them in Uhud. So the Bani al-Mustaliq now feel encouraged that, oh, we should go too. Look, they're not that strong. The Quraysh just came back. Look how many people they killed. We should go after them, and we should go and defeat them. And when the Prophet ﷺ heard about this, he sent a companion. His name is Buraidah ibn al-Hasib, and he went to speak to Al-Harith, who was the leader of Bani al-Mustaliq. So the leader of Bani al-Mustaliq's name is Harith. And he went to speak to him as a reconnaissance mission to test whether or not this attack was true or false. And he said to him, hey, I heard you're going after those bad guys, the Muslims. If you're really going after them, I'd love to join your army. I'm a strong man. I have a squad of 20 special forces with me that can join your army. How about you let us come in and we take part of the reward of attacking the Muslims? And Harith, of course, said, yes, love to have you and love to have your men. Come and join us for the fight. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, when he did this to verify whether or not the attack was imminent or not. He didn't, of course, this companion is a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. He's not going to go join the enemy. But the Prophet ﷺ sent him to hear it, like as we say, from the horse's mouth. Is he really serious about attacking Medina, or is this just a rumor? So one of the lessons you'll hear in Sirah about this particular move the Prophet ﷺ did is Muslims don't act on rumors. We hear a lot of rumors all the time, and especially nowadays on social media, man. Oh, did you hear this? Did you hear this happen? Did you hear this person said so? No, rumors, right? Until we verify what's actually true, we should not go and spread it or retweet it or resend it out or whatever. So the Prophet ﷺ confirmed through his own way that in fact they were ready to come and to attack Medina. The Prophet ﷺ rallied 700 companions, and they were very well armed, and 30 of them had horses. When Muslims now started to upgrade, mashallah, in their equipment, and they went and they did a complete surprise attack on Bani al-Mustaliq at dawn. They did a surprise attack on Bani al-Mustaliq at dawn. This was such a sure win for the Muslims that even fill in the blank joined. Who is fill in the blank? Muslims left Medina, and people were so sure the Muslims were going to win that even this group of people joined the Muslims. Who is this group of people? Munafiqeen. Even the Munafiqeen joined. Remember, the Munafiqeen turned back from Uhud. They turned back like, I'm not interested in going to that. Now they're like, oh yeah, we'll join you. This looks like a sure win. This looks like we'll get something out of this one. This is an easy stock profit, right? So even the Munafiqeen joined in the Muslim army to go after them. This, by the way, there's a slight difference of opinion whether this happened on the 4th or the 5th year of Hijrah. The reason why, by the way, this ghazwa is really important, you'll see that the ghazwa was uneventful except for one thing. But the reason why this ghazwa is so important in the books of Sirah is because something that happens after the ghazwa, which we're not going to talk about tonight. Tonight we'll keep it short. What happened after this ghazwa that's really meaningful in the seerah and had ayat in the Quran revealed about it? Hadithat al-Ifk. The event of the accusation, the false accusation of Aisha radiallahu anha, occurred as an outcome at the very tail end of this Ghazwa Bani al-Mustaliq. So the importance of this Ghazwa is less so on the military front, more so on what happened with the Munafiqeen and Aisha radiallahu anha, and then the subsequent ayat that were revealed to defend the honor of Aisha radiallahu anha happened after this Ghazwa of Bani al-Mustaliq. Okay, so the Muslims essentially go in and they, in a complete, what you would call surprise attack, take over Bani al-Mustaliq. There's hardly a battle. Like, the people are so unprepared, they essentially surrender. There's two types of people: ones that surrender and ones that escape. So the ones that escaped are the leader of the tribe, Thabit, right? He effectively fled, and he took his closest personal guard with him, all he could take with him. Everyone else surrendered to the Muslims, right? The Muslims from this Ghazwa took 2,000 camels, 5,000 sheep, and 1,000 people as prisoners of war from the actual Bani Muslim. 1,000 prisoners of war, right? And the only person, subhanAllah, that was killed was actually an Ansari, and his name is Hisham ibn Subaba. This Ansari was not killed by the Bani Mustaliq. He was killed by another Ansari by accident, what you would call nowadays a friendly fire incident. We didn't know that it was you. Oh, shoot! Oh, he turns out to be one of us. So this Ansari was killed in a friendly fire accident by another Ansari. Just to finish off the story of this Ansari who got killed in Bani Mustaliq, he's obviously Shaheed Bani Mustaliq. He has a brother in Mecca. The brother in Mecca hears about the death of his brother in Bani Mustaliq. The brother in Mecca is a mushrik. Can a mushrik go and demand the rights for a Muslim? No. Can a mushrik inherit from a Muslim? No. Well, I should continue to ask you questions because you guys seem to really pause for a long time. Can a non-Muslim marry a Muslim? That's a trick question, that one. Okay. So you cannot inherit, a mushrik cannot inherit from a Muslim. So the only way for his brother in Mecca to ask for blood money is to do what? To convert to Islam. The only way for him to ask for the blood money is expensive. It's a lot of money. I get $1 million, right? So his brother pretended to accept Islam. And he goes to Medina and he asks for the blood money for his brother that was killed in Bani Mustaliq. He asks for the blood money that was killed in Bani Mustaliq. And the Prophet ﷺ gathers 100 camels for him and he gives him the 100 camels. He takes the 100 camels. He conveniently parks it outside of Medina. He goes back to Medina and he kills the killer of his brother. So he kills the Muslim that accidentally killed his brother, even though he already took the blood money. And turns out he's actually not even a Muslim. He takes the camels and he escapes back to Mecca. Question for those that have done some research on Sirah: what happens to this man later? What's the most important thing that happens to this guy? Does anyone know? He was when? Fath Mecca. He was one of the few people. Remember the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? He said, whoever enters the house of Abu Sufyan, فهو آمن. يعني فهو آمن. فهو آمن. What is? He's safe. When he went, the Prophet ﷺ, when he went, we'll talk about this in more detail, inshallah, when the time is right. Fath Mecca, you know, nowadays they call things an amnesty. They say, oh, we'll give you an amnesty. Fath Mecca was literally the biggest amnesty in human history. If you read human history, all of human history, human military history, diplomacy history, Fath Mecca was the biggest act of mercy ever shown on a military confrontation where the other side absolutely could have been killed and deserved it. One would argue, and deserved it. The Meccans of Quraysh 100% deserved it. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever enters into the house of Abu Sufyan is safe. Whoever's laid down his weapons is safe. Whoever comes out to the Kaaba is safe. Like the amnesty he gave to them was unbelievable, except for very, very few people. This was one of them. This was one of them. He said, this guy, if you find him, you catch him, dead or alive. You bring this guy, right, after what he did. So this is the brother of Sayyidina Hisham ibn Sababa that was killed by accident in Bani al-Mustaliq. Okay. The other important event that occurred in Bani al-Mustaliq, and this one is fascinating to me, and you'll see why in a second. It's a great story though. Was has anyone heard of Juwayriyah bint al-Harith? Who is Juwayriyah bint al-Harith? Wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so at the time of Ghazwa Bani al-Mustaliq, she was not the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who is she? She is from Bani al-Mustaliq. She's the daughter of the chief, mashallah. She's the daughter of the chief that just escaped. You understand? So she went from being a princess, right, in terms of title, to now captured as a POW by one of the Muslims, but by a soldier from the Muslim army. And she went to her captor and she said to him, look, I don't want to be a captive. I don't want to be your captive. How about I pay you for my freedom? And he says, well, if you can collect the money, okay. The guy's okay for him to take the money instead. Is this halal? 100% halal. What do you mean? Why is it not halal? She said, I'll bring you the money, and he agreed. She said, I'll give you the fidya. You agree? He said, I agree. But the fidya is $1 million. You don't have $1 million. Your father just left and took all the money. You understand? So she goes and she tries to collect the money. So she's now like, can you guys give me the money? Remember me? I'm Juwayriyah bint al-Harith. My father just left. Do you remember me? Radiallahu anhu. And by the way, the evidence of this is actually in the Quran. So just to help out a little bit more of my answer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَكَاتِبُوهُمَّ إِنْ عَلِمْتُمْ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا. Like you can agree to this. You can create. It's an agreement, right? So so she has the right to demand her freedom. She's able to come up with the money. So she goes to the tent of who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she knocks on the door. And who opens the door? Aisha radiallahu anha, mashallah. And so Aisha radiallahu anha, she in her hadith, she says, I saw Juwayriyah bint al-Harith at the door, and I found her to be hulwatun mallaha. She's sweet, and she's like mashallah, really good looking, and she, you know what I mean, and like one of those girls. And what does Aisha say about her? Well, okay, so she said, I wish the Prophet ﷺ doesn't see her, because he's going to like her a lot. If he sees her, he's going to like her a lot. Well, what else does she say? She says many things about Juwayriyah, but what's the first thing she says? That's the second thing she says is, I wish the Prophet ﷺ doesn't see her. Because what's the first thing she said? I hated her from the minute I saw her. So she described her, and then she says, I hated her from the minute I saw her. And then she says, I wish the Prophet ﷺ is not going to interact with her, because otherwise, we're now going to have another, partner, right? So she goes to the Prophet ﷺ and she tells him who she is. She says, I am the daughter of, Thabit, and I'm asking for the money. I'm asking for the money to free myself from your soldier, and he's agreed to take the money instead. And she says, I'm a leader of my people. Freeing me would really help me out. Like it would really kind of help me out, help calm the people down that you've just captured, and so forth. And the Prophet ﷺ says to her, how about I free you and I marry you? And she agrees. She agrees, right? And her mahr was what? What was her mahr? Her freedom. Her mahr was her freedom. So they hear this. The Prophet ﷺ just married Juwayriyah radiallahu. And now you think of yourself, you're a Muslim in the army that just captured 1,000 people, and now the people that you captured are what? They're related to the Prophet ﷺ and the woman that he just married. Like, what are you going to do? Still keep them? So what did they do? They freed all of them. They freed all. So the other thing that Aisha radiallahu anha says, she says, I have never seen anyone with as much positive impact on her people as Juwayriyah bint al-Harith had on her own people when the Prophet ﷺ married her, because all of her people were freed. So the other thing that happened is Al-Harith came back after this happened, not knowing that his daughter was just married to the Prophet ﷺ. And he came back to negotiate for his family. So he comes back, he negotiates for his family. And he says, look, I want my daughter back. I want my daughter back. And the Prophet ﷺ says to him, it's her decision. Completely her decision. When we see these things in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, again, you compare it with many of the things that Islamophobes say today, or people that attack Islam about, oh, look, it was spread by the sword. Oh, look, they forced convert people. Oh, look, you can see how 100% of what they're saying is 100%, lies and fabrications against Islam. When you see the treatment of the Prophet ﷺ of the people and the companions, radiallahu anhum ajma'in. And so when Harith came back to negotiate, he said the decision is hers. By the way, does this remind you of any other similar situation? Zayd ibn? Anyone know the story of Zayd ibn Haritha? His father came to take him after he's lived for years with the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, I want my son back. Prophet ﷺ said, it's his choice. Zayd ibn Haritha says what? I want to stay with the Prophet. I want to go back with you. SubhanAllah. So she says the same thing. She says, I want to stay with the Prophet. I don't want to go back with you. Right? So and again, SubhanAllah, these are things, you hear about why people accept Islam. One of the things I love is whenever someone takes the Shahada, you go and you ask them, you're like, why did you accept Islam? What happened? I'm always interested. And everyone, SubhanAllah, has a different answer. Like, there's a lot of commonality, but the path, SubhanAllah, is always different, right? So Al-Harith was so affected by his daughter that he accepted Islam, and all the people that fled with him all accepted Islam, right? So this is an example, another example of how the treatment, how we treat people, really matters, right? All of them accepted Islam. All of his people accepted Islam, and so after that happened, what then happens to these people? So you're all part of the Muslim army that went from Medina, went into Bani Mustaliq. You now have 5,000 camels and 5,000 sheep and 5,000 horses. You took all this armor. You took $10 million worth of gold. You took property. You took land. What now happens? Everything is given back. Everything is given back. So it's as if they lost nothing. They just entered into Islam, right? And this is really important, because when we think about another big misnomer that you hear about all the time, it's like, oh, jihad this and jihad that. Like, this is a terrific example of where jihad was not about the wealth or the power or killing or taking over land or anything like that. This was about what? This is about truly people knowing what the word of Allah is. This is what this is. When you hear later on, and you'll see in the seerah of the Prophet and the seerah of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when they went to India and Afghanistan and Persia and Russia and Tajikistan and Dagestan and all, why did they go? Why did they go? Did they go after wealth? Did they go after expanding the empire? Why did they go? They went to spread dawah. When did they go to war? If the ruler said no. So if the ruler says, I am the king, it's my city, no, they will continue to worship the Asnam, no, they're this, no, they're that, no, you can't come in for da'wah, no, this, no, that, then there's a war. But if you let us in and make da'wah, then there's nothing wrong with that. Now, which Muslim army ever went to Malaysia or Indonesia, or which Muslim army? It's never happened. Register East Africa, the whole coast of East Africa was through Muslim traders, people going back and forth and trading and commerce, right? So this is really important also to capture from this. And as I said, Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, I don't know of any lady that brought more blessings to her people than Juwayriyah bint al-Harith did. Juwayriyah bint al-Harith, also just to talk about her, and then we'll wrap up this time, inshallah. She is the one where she fasted the day of Ashura, and the Prophet ﷺ asked her what question? What question did he ask her? Huh? No, he didn't ask her why you're fasting. So the two sunnah mu'akkada of the fasting of the Prophet ﷺ, besides Mondays and Thursdays, are what? What are the two sunnah mu'akkada? The two special days that he fasted all the time. Arafah and Ashura. MashaAllah, that's it. The answer is Arafah and Ashura. So when he asked her, she said, I'm fasting Ashura. He said, did you fast the day before? That's where we get, just like you said, MashaAllah, which is you should not fast Ashura on its own, because this was the habit of who? The Yahudis in Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, fasting the day is a good thing. He actually, in his hadith, he says, we are closer to Musa than you are. He says, we the Muslims are closer to what Musa did and how Musa worshipped than you are. And he told the Muslims, you can fast the day of Ashura, but make sure you fast with it either the day before or the day after. What other comments did the Prophet ﷺ, like this one, teach the Muslims that the Yahudis did? Not to follow them in the Sunnah. What else? Like, what's an example of that? A visual example. The beard and mashallah. So they had beards too. The Yahudis had beards. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, grow your beard, but trim the mustache, right? So everything he did, the Prophet ﷺ, was different. It's not everything was bad, everything was different, because we have our own identity, right? Okay. So, not praying with the shoes on. Yeah, praying with the shoes on, mashallah. Sorry, where were we? Oh yeah, so he fasted those 2 days. So she was fasting, and he asked her that question. So another event that we know about, also one of the things that we learned from Juwayriyah radiallahu anha, was she was a person that made a lot of dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one time the Prophet ﷺ left the home in the morning, and she was sitting making dhikr. And she made dhikr, and he came back at dhuhr time. And she was still sitting down and making dhikr. And the Prophet ﷺ said, what are you doing? And she said, I've been making dhikr. She said, she told him, you've been making dhikr from the time of Fajr. And she said, yes. And then he tells her, can I teach you? He says, subhanallah. So he says, can I teach you words that will make things easier for you? Look how the Prophet ﷺ wants to make things easy for you. Instead of sitting from the Fajr until dhuhr, he says to her, you can say, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, adada khalqihi, wa rida nafsihi, wa zinatu arshihi, wa midadu kalimatihi. So the Prophet ﷺ basically taught her, and therefore taught us to say, you say subhanallah bihamdihi. So the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, when you say subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim, it fills the mizan. It fills the scale. Just those two words, subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim, just like that. Then he tells her, you say subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim, adad khalqihi. What does adad khalqihi mean? By the number of creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many creations does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have? We can't count them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is al-khaliq. Al-khaliq means everything in creation. Right? So you're saying subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim, by the number of things in creation. Multiplied, in other words, by the number of things of creation. Adad khalqihi. Wa rida nafsihi. What is rida nafsihi? What does rida nafsi mean? How content, how satisfied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with himself. SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-adl, al-hayy, al-qayyum. How satisfied is Allah with himself? Right? وَزِنَةُ عَرْشِهِ. What is zinatu arshihi? The weight of his throne. Can you imagine? These are things we can understand. وَمِدَادُ كَلِمَاتِ. What is midad kalimati? The speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many things is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say at the end of Surah Al-Kahf? قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفذ البحر. If the ocean was just the ink, that you use to write down on the pen, like how many of us would use up from the water of the ocean to write down? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even if the ocean was full of ink, it wouldn't be enough. No, nothing would be enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of everything that is going on. So he teaches her this very simple dua. Incidentally, we should use this type of dhikr in the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah where we are. We should use these things. These, because the Prophet ﷺ tells us these 10 days that we're in, these blessed 10 days we're in, all the good a'mal are accepted. What's different about these 10 days? Someone tell me. Just tell me some of the things that are different about these days we're in, the first 10 days of the Hajj. No, say that again louder. He makes the good deeds in the day and the night. Oh, the day instead of the night. Okay, so that's fantastic. That's a great answer. So what's special is the day versus what? That's at night. The nights of Ramadan, right? Nights of Ramadan, right? But I mean, all of Ramadan is blessed, just like all of these days are blessed. But this is the days. Okay. What else? Yeah, because it's Hajj season. It's Hajj season. Okay. What's the 9th and what's the 10th? Arafah and Eid, right? Arafah and Eid. Okay. Alhamdulillah. So this is right. What else? What are the kinds of acts that the Prophet ﷺ said? Tahleel, takbir, tahmeed, tasbih, all of these are good things to do throughout the day. Anything you can think of that's good, but especially these things, including obviously connecting with the family, giving sadaqah. The first thing we should do actually in these 10 days is re-perfect our worship. Actually, let me rewind for a second. Why do we have these 10 days that are special? Before we even get into it. Why are these? Because in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful to this ummah that He gives it opportunity after opportunity after opportunity for success. If you're working with a teacher Br.Aala, and they say, look, you only scored a B, you want to score an A, here's another homework assignment that you can do. Here's another test that you can take. Here's another lecture that you can listen to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this ummah season after season after season of reward and amplification of the reward. Season after season. We have Ramadan, and then we have the last 10 days of Ramadan. We have Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan, and then you have the late nights, and then you have the evenings, and then you have the season of the Hajj. Every time there's a season for extra reward. Now the Prophet ﷺ talks about the things that we can do. He talks about the dhikr. He talks about the best dua that can be said in Arafah is what? MashaAllah. He says specifically about the day of Arafah, Prophet ﷺ says, the best thing that I and all the previous messengers before me have said is, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, lahul mulk wa lahul hamdu, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. The best, and obviously say this throughout the whole 10 days. The sunnah to fast of the Prophet ﷺ, the known sunnah to fast 100% is the day of Arafah. Of course, if you want to fast the previous 10 days, this is also one of the good deeds, but it's not known that the Prophet ﷺ fasted for the full 10 days before the day of. You understand? So if you're doing it, mashallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept you. This is a good thing. Okay. So these are just some of the things about the this dua. She died, Juwayriya bint al-Harith died in the 50th year after Hijrah. She was 65 years old. Incidentally, who else died that year? We talked about him at the beginning. Hassan radiallahu anhu also died during that year. So let's go ahead and wrap up now, inshallah. I think we've been at it for a while. There was something else I was going to talk about. We could talk about it some other stuff. I was actually going to talk about the Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ, given the season that we're in. Yeah, maybe we should. Is anyone? Everyone's gone to Hajj? Yeah, alhamdulillah. Inshallah. So we'll talk about. I'm not gonna. You didn't go to Hajj yet. December, there's no Hajj. Umrah first, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, accept you, inshallah. So, yeah, inshallah. Inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept you. I was gonna say a little bit about. I wasn't going to describe Hajj. I was going to talk about the just some of the key things that they're nice seerah stories about Hajj from the Prophet ﷺ. I'll just give you a few quick bullet points now that I found it. I've written it all in green apparently for some reason in this book. But how many people joined the Prophet ﷺ in Hajj? Does anyone know? 144,000 people. 144,000 people joined the Prophet ﷺ in Hajj. And how many Hajj did the Prophet ﷺ make? One time. Yeah, one time. When they heard, the Muslims around the Arabian Peninsula heard the Prophet ﷺ was going to make Hajj, they all came and they camped outside of Medina. They camped outside. Medina was a bigger city. The camps outside of Medina were bigger than Medina. Understand? Like, can you imagine? Nowadays we go out and they say, oh, they're going with so and so, they're going with so and so, and they are going with the Prophet ﷺ. And I'll just close with this. Most of the companions, most of the Sahaba, referred to as Sahaba, became Sahaba in that Hajj season. Because what's the definition of the Sahaba? What's the definition? Saw the Prophet ﷺ at least once. And most of them saw the Prophet ﷺ in that Hajj season. So, inshallah, we'll talk about it in more detail another time. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من جهد البلاء ودرك الشقاء وسوء القضاء وشماتة الأعداء. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين وعلو برحمتك كلمة الحق والدين. اللهم انصر إخواننا في فلسطين نصرا مؤزرا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصرهم نصرا مؤزرا. اللهم احفظهم بحفظك واكلأهم برعايتك ورعيهم بعينك التي لا تنام. اللهم احسب كل من مات منهم في عداد الشهداء. اللهم لا تحرمنا أجرهم ولا تفتنا بعدهم واغفر لنا ولهم. اللهم عليك بأعدائهم وبأعدائنا فإنهم لا يعجزونك. اللهم احصهم عددا اقتلهم بددا ولا تغادر منهم أحدا. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم متعنا بلذة النظر إلى وجهك الكريم. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. And I think next Sunday is going to be Eid. So yeah, so Eid you're off. Inshallah the week after Eid, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.